I talk a little bit more than Aya when I paint, but Aya's really good at just focusing on what she's doing. I think that's great.
Well, I can only do one thing at a time. That's my problem.
It's
And
actually not a bad thing. I think. Look, I think sometimes people multitask too much, and I've seen this actually happen. Where it was embarrassing too, because these people like they thought that they were doing something, and it turned out they did it completely wrong because they were doing something else when they did it. And I'm like, sometimes you need to just stop and do one thing.
yeah, well, it's life is kind of weird that way. It makes us try to do everything all at once.
I think modern life does, but I feel like in the past, maybe just if you had the one thing that you like, I don't want to be a niche, but I just don't want to always be like rushing around, and I refuse to do that. I can't. I mean, yeah, sometimes you have to, but I'm not going to do that just for fun. That doesn't sound fun to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like to concentrate on things, and
That's
that,
good.
yeah, it's sort of it's my weakness and my strength at the same time, you know?
Well, it doesn't have. Oh, hi again.
Hello. So that was just a clip, something that we did earlier today, and I thought we would share some of that with the audience, and we can also watch it fast if we get tired of watching it slow.
Hi.
Um, but anyway, it was wonderful painting with you today.
No,
Would
it
you,
was a lot of fun.
would you like to show us your completed painting?
Hi, here I am.
Very beautiful. I
I
love
think
the
it's,
colors.
yeah, I kept thinking, oh, I need to change it, but I'm like, I don't know why I feel like that. It's good the way it is.
It is. It's beautiful. And what I really like is the palm fronds. I mean, I like everything. I like the colors. I like the way that the orange the sunset background um, contrasts with your trees and the mountains. And I like the way that the, the palm trees have a slightly different color from the mountains in the background. Not the same color, but it's similar, and yet it sort of comes out at us. And another thing that I love is the palm fronds. How do you do that?
Well, what I do is I layered it. Like first I started with dark greens and a thin brush, and then I had a lighter green and a little bit of gray, green, light green, dark green, and I mixed in grays, and then I was letting it dry a little bit, and then I was going over it with light green, and then I went back with dark green. So it's just kind of a layering process.
But it seems so precise. I don't think I could do anything quite that precise.
But do you have a really tiny brush? I think sometimes like how do you have like really thin brush? Because sometimes that can.
I do have some. I have all kinds. I
Okay.
don't have them here right now, but yeah, because I put away all my brushes.
No. I just happen to leave them here. Oh, by the way, I think some of my brushes are unsalvageable because I should clean them right away. And I kept meaning to clean some of them, and they sat for a while, and I'm like, oh boy, oh well.
I've done that. It's no big deal really. But right now I'm painting with watercolor, and even with watercolor, I still manage to be kind of messy, even though it's so I don't know if you can see, but over here there's actual texture to this reddish pinkish color thing over here.
But I
It's
kind of like texture. I feel like it gives it some dimension. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do it. I just somehow, whenever I paint, it does that.
That's cool though. I kind of like it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess I can put it in the background here. Um, yeah, so what happened was that you and I were going to do a paint together, and I think it wasn't until about an hour into it that we realized.
Yeah,
uh,
my dad, what's pretty ironic about the whole thing is at the beginning I'm like, oh, sometimes people should concentrate on one thing and sometimes people are doing something and then it doesn't work out. And that happened to me.
well, it happens to everyone all the time, and It's really hard on live streams. I'm terribly scattered during a live stream because I have to think about more than one thing.
Hmm.
Are we sharing this? Is it live? Can you see all the participants?
It's a
Should
lot
you
of,
see them?
and
So it,
we're doing it ourselves, and some people like the big, they hire somebody that helps them with all that. So that's something we have to keep in mind too when you're doing it yourself, you know?
yeah, I think Dr. Ramani also has somebody helping her, even when she's doing it in her own home. Now there are other places where she does it, and she goes in a studio and does it, and it's very professional. But even when she's doing it in her own home, there's somebody who's helping her out.
She definitely does, because I watched her million subscriber tribute thank you, and she said she didn't even want to start a YouTube channel, and it was some of her younger assistants that inspired her to do that, and they're the ones that started filming her and planning the whole thing, and she talked about it. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't have that kind of a crew, and I guess you don't have one either.
Oh, I don't have a crew. I tried to get my family in on wanting to do like some sort of stuff with me, but nobody ever wanted to help me out or be on the live stream. And then they didn't like me being on YouTube. So I just gave up on that. I'm like, you know what? I don't know any, like, maybe someday we will meet and we'll do something, but anybody else, they're just like, no, I can't be on the internet. Can't show me. I can't help you. And I'm like, whatever.
Right. So anyway, I don't really know what the best way to do this is to show people my painting process. But luckily, even though we didn't film the beginning of it in StreamYard, I was going to make a little film for myself of my painting. So I do have that, and I had to render it because in StreamYard they won't let me just take any video from my camera or my
Oh,
cell phone. So I had to render it. So that's why I had to put the pictures on either side and all
well,
that.
I thought it looked great. I just thought it looked really nice. So
Yeah, so I'm going to share it, uh, but I think maybe I we don't necessarily need to listen to everything that we said if we're talking right now, because it would be hard, don't you think?
but I kind of like seeing the beginning because I wasn't really able to see you do it back when we
Oh,
were
okay.
painting. So I
Okay,
kind
we can
of,
start to the beginning
if you
like
want to,
this,
wherever you want, yeah.
or I could go really fast and you could see the process and it would be,
Okay, that would
sped
be fun.
up.
Ooh, I like it. It's like one of those fast paced videos. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is fun. Found out how to do a time lapse video on my iPhone the other day, actually.
Uh-huh.
Have you done those before?
Yeah, I do it. I have my own way of doing it, but yes, I've done it. Because I don't like what it does.
Yeah, I know it kind of makes it odd and wonky. The only
Yeah.
reason I do that is because like you're doing yours on YouTube, but sometimes I put mine on TikTok, so I don't really care what it looks like there.
Okay, well, I do actually make my own time lapse videos for Instagram as well, but I have my own peculiar way of doing that. So anyway, that was going back and forth. You can see it come together. You can see it fall apart. And now we could just watch it at regular speed um, without having to listen to our conversation, I think.
But you did like the brown. What I kind of like is you use like I think you use brown to do like an outline. It looks like that's your foundation. It looks like, is that how you do it?
This time I think it was a kind of blue that I used. I don't know if you can tell the color from here, but it's not actually a brown in this case.
Oh, okay. It kind of looks brownish, but I see what you're saying now. It does look a little bit more blue now that I look at it a little bit closer.
And to tell you the truth, when I started out, I wasn't exactly sure what color I was using, so I kept using it because um, I don't know if you can see, but over here, you can see my watercolors. And I've been using that same set ever since I decided I was going to try watercolor. So it's a children's set. It's not something for adults. It's not artist quality. And I've just been adding water to those and painting with them.
Well,
And some,
if it lasts, that's great. What's wrong with that? I think that's great.
yeah, yeah. So I am very cheap and I received this whole set as a present and I'm using it.
That's a good thing to do. I had some, okay, I took a painting class. They made it a watercolor class when I was a freshman in college because they said, oh, more people could afford to take it if it was watercolor because the price would be between 200 for a watercolor class and like 1,000. And at first I just had like the kid watercolor set. And I think I didn't buy like the little bit higher end watercolor set until towards the end. But the only reason I did that was because I was tempted by how vibrant the colors were. But I really liked the kid one because I did a lot of paintings with them and I still had some of it after the class and it lasted me a long time.
Yeah. And you know what? Young Hying, I saw that she uses the watercolor sets that you can get in at Walmart, you know. And so when this one runs out, I'll just go out and get one of those.
I have to say, I Palmer had an okay art department pre-pandemic, but since the pandemic, I will just go to Walmart now because I save a lot of money just buying like all my crafting stuff at Walmart or any art stuff, as opposed to like I used to go to Joann's and Michael's and they charge more for the same thing. And you can do all your shopping at Walmart and you don't have to go to like a separate store. So why not?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I don't really have the option of going many other places. I can shop online, but I like to see what I'm getting.
I think with art supplies, it's kind of nicer. Now, I don't, it was so random. I found out, well, I know you guys don't have a lot of these in your areas. I had no idea like Burlington and Ross had like art supplies, but I ended up getting like a $39 paint set kit for discounted for like $8.99.
Yeah.
That was,
Sounds, yeah, sounds like a good deal.
it was. And I think the only reason it was discounted is because a lot of strange things end up there, but like it was supposed to be like a, for a present. I don't know, like a lot of things that are whole that don't sell other places. Like if they don't sell, they just end up there. So they're a good thing.
Hmm. Yeah, they look very vibrant. I mean, what I've seen of what you used, you know, the
Yeah,
colors.
yeah, they're pretty nice colors. Anyway, so I was going to ask you about this series. Like, what made you want to paint it?
Oh, well, it's visually quite stunning. You know, I'm going to review the series at a different time, so I'm not going to actually talk about the series,
Okay,
but
that's
it's visually very, very. You know, there are some series that I like the way they look, others not so much. I can still like a series that isn't visually, you know, stunning, but something like Mr. Sunshine, it just every image in the show is like a postcard. And this a series, The Sound of Magic is like that too. It has like postcard images in it.
wow.
And not that this is a postcard image so much. I was just trying to get at a
No,
character.
I see what you're saying. Like, just very beautiful imagery. Because that I do remember about Mr. Sunshine. I didn't finish it. I only got about halfway through, but it was very beautiful. The whole thing.
Yeah, no, I later found out that they were actually doing color matching and that they actually thought about the colors, you know, not just designing a costume that looked nice on one person, but seeing how the whole thing, you know, matching the colors in the scene of the background and what the actors were wearing, and I suppose even their makeup and everything.
Wow, that's a lot of thought put into it. What is just a series, but it's almost as if these Korean series are doing more thought and care in some way sometimes than like just American movies like lately. Because I haven't
Yeah,
seen an American movie that looks beautiful like Mr. Sunshine in years, like maybe ever.
yeah. Well, I think maybe Dr. Zhivago or Lawrence of Arabia were of that caliber.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, you're right. Lawrence of Arabia was very cinematic. That's true. That's a good point.
I mean, and those were like 3-hour movies or longer. Back when a movie was a major thing. You could spend the whole day in that movie.
And the thing I loved about movies, I would say even before like maybe the mid 90s, just epic story, like very beautifully written. And I just don't see that in the American cinema anymore. And that's why I know you love Korean shows, but I've just gone over to wanting to watch Turkish shows. And there's a few I might watch after I finish Magnificent Century, maybe. Even if I don't watch the whole thing, they kind of copy what the Koreans are doing, like with the beautiful cinematography. And they're
Mhm.
actually remaking a lot of the Korean series right now for a Turkish audience. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah, you know how it used to be everybody wanted to remake the American shows? Now it's
Yeah.
the Korean shows are inspiring everybody.
Yeah, I think some of the Korean shows are remaking Chinese shows though, because that the one Chinese show that I enjoyed so much, A Love So Beautiful, I think
Mhm.
then the Koreans went and made, basically that story.
Okay, that's interesting.
But nobody copies the Americans anymore. Why would they?
Mhm. I think there's just been too many like scandals, and we didn't even need like a movement to know that some movies were weird. Like I could have told you 20 years ago, like American Beauty's a dumb movie. Like I wouldn't watch that thing. I don't need like I don't know why people all of a sudden are like, oh, like no, it was never good. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, it's just like modern art sometimes is not pleasant to people who are not, part of that movement. Let's put it that way. And modern
Yes.
music, I mean, there's atonal music. Who listens to that? You
Ugh.
know?
No. But then this is the thing I noticed, like I was looking more into like Turkish culture, like a lot of the actors are also musicians, like Halit Ergenç, who played this Sultan Suleiman. He actually was trained in the theater and trained as an opera singer, and he can sing classical music, jazz, rock. Like he actually sings beautifully, and he loves culture and the and I was just thinking like a lot of these American actors, I don't see the and it's just interesting. Like they seem to still value. I mean, yeah, they have a rock scene too, but like more beautiful, refined cultural things. Like I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know if you noticed, but I've changed my technique for watercolor. Do you see any difference between when I started with watercolor and what I'm doing right now?
I think you had mentioned because I think I watched your video. You're starting to just do it more free hand, like you were doing pencil at the beginning, and now you're just doing it more like free form. Is that it?
Yeah, that's true. That's a move that I made because originally I thought watercolor was completely unmanageable. I thought, oh, it always spills over because that was my experience from being a small child, of course. Um, that I didn't have any control over it, and therefore uh, I just thought it was for coloring things in after you drew them. But then
I
I found out, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it looks like it's so much more than that when you're using it.
Yeah, but I found out that, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. After you kind of know how it works a little bit better and you're more accustomed to it, you don't have to use that much water so that it runs all over the place.
That's true. I mean,
So,
you've got a lot of color and depth in there actually for being watercolor.
yeah, well, actually, watercolor has color to it. It has this ability to be translucent, and you don't have to make everything so thick. So when I was when I was doing acrylic, my paintings were really, really, really thick.
Mhm.
Um, and it would be layer upon layer upon layer. Now I'm doing sort of the same thing with the watercolor, but I do think it's lighter.
Okay. Do you have a preference now? Like, do you prefer a certain technique, like, or medium over the other?
I don't have a preference overall. I still love uh, acrylic painting, but right now, as I think I told you before, I don't have a lot of time and I don't want to have to change my clothes and all that. And I find that acrylic painting is a lot messier for me.
That, that's so true. Like today, when I open the acrylic paints, I'm like, I have to go rinse my hands. I still have stain. I need to scrub my hands more. I still have stains from the paint on my hand.
Yeah, so I mean, I got a little bit dirty during my painting, but all I had to do is wash my hands and everything was fine. Yeah,
That's
so
good. I mean, I've
yeah,
washed my hands multiple times since then, though. I have.
I know. So that's why at the moment I'm favoring watercolor. It's not that I don't like acrylic. If I
Yeah.
were going to dedicate like a whole week to painting a large painting in acrylics, then that would be fine. I would have acrylic painting clothes on that whole week. But because I have to do other things, I can't do that right now.
It's a good strategy, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to go with the flow, right?
Exactly. I like the lips too, how you did that. It looks really neat.
Yeah, well, I mean, she had pursed lips. I didn't get the lip shape exactly right. Um, but I did an overall imitation of what was going on in the reference photo.
It's very neat.
And when people have their lips pursed like that, you don't see their teeth at all. You just see a dark space behind there.
I kind of actually like that. Like, I'll be honest with you, I would paint teeth if I have to, but they were like one of my least favorite features to have to paint or draw on a person. I just never liked it that much.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will, if the teeth are actually showing in the reference photo, I will try to do an approximation of the teeth. Um, but yeah, it's easier if I don't have to.
I totally agree with you. And I do like how you did the hair too. Like, is it mostly brown and black, or like what colors did you use for the hair?
I actually use some blue for the hair as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's light blue and it's looking kind of grayish, but I wanted to capture those light areas. When somebody has really, really black hair, then the highlights are blue.
That's true. Blue black hair. It is actually a thing.
Yes. So I tried to capture that.
That's really cool. It kind of reminds me, okay, like if somebody's hair is not naturally that dark, if you do henna, and I don't really like to do indigo as a second step anymore, but I did a few times. You can like achieve that blue black, and I used to love the way it looked for a couple of days until it washed out.
Yeah, no, I've never done the indigo. I think I ordered it once because you recommended it, but then I decided I didn't want it.
It's good for like if you want to do an art project. If you still had it though, you could dilute it and do like watercoloring with it, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I still have it.
And you can do other things with it, like you can, I mean, just be it's very potent. You can like dye clothing with it to some degree. Like there's different things you can do with it if you don't use it on your hair.
Right.
So do you have a plan about what you want to paint next, or just going with the flow once again?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, whenever a holiday comes up, I have a plan that I am not buying any more greeting cards and I will make some paintings that are very tiny, miniature paintings, and then I will affix them to colored paper, and those are going to be my greeting cards.
I actually really like that. I used to make my own greeting cards for a long time, but then I just kind of I don't really send out mail anymore or cards, or I just don't do it anymore. But like over a decade ago, I used to do that. It's fun.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not going to go out of my way to do that, but I believe the next holiday that I'll really rev up for is probably going to be Christmas. So, when I get going for that, I will start thinking of appropriate Christmassy scenes for me to paint in miniature. And what I'm learning from Young Hying is it doesn't have to be very detailed to be evocative.
That's a good point. You
So I
just
used
need
to think, yeah, go ahead.
I said you just need to find like an expressive way to convey it.
Right. I used to think, well, the reason I can't paint landscapes is, oh, I would have to actually see what I was seeing, and it would have to be large and all of this kind of stuff. But there are ways to do it that are, you know, like you only make a stroke here and a stroke there, and somehow it creates the impression of what you want to be out there. And you don't have to do the details.
That's true, like especially with painting landscapes. I think that's very true.
But since I like animals and I like portraits, I would probably always put a little animal in the foreground.
It makes it more interesting, and I like that you paint portraits because I mean I do like landscapes, but I mean until I recently started painting the palm trees, I wasn't really doing as many landscapes anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the easiest thing for me to focus on is the face. It doesn't matter if it's a human face or an animal face, but I really like painting faces.
I know you did some paintings of like your colleagues when you were at Rice University, right?
Yeah, I did. I did a very large painting.
What made you come up with the idea to do that? That was really neat.
Well, it was an event. It was basically a narrative painting about an event that happened, and I thought that it was an appropriate subject for a painting.
Nice.
But even if you look at some of the smaller faces in the group portrait, some of them were really good.
No, I think
So
it was a beautiful painting. Yeah, no, I really liked it. I was just curious, like what the like why you decided to paint that. I was just curious. That was just my curiosity.
yeah, well, it was an event at the department, a meeting between students and faculty. I like to paint dramatic events.
Well, that's what they always try to do with the court painting, but I feel like yours was more expressive because some of those court paintings and drawings, I'm just like, what? What?
Well, I mean, they have quite a challenge. They're supposed to be doing it in real time. So that's kind of like being a simultaneous interpreter, only with paintings. Um,
Hmm. I was gonna ask you, like, with the whole abstract thing, I mean, if people like abstract art, I totally understand that, and people can like whatever they like. But I'm not really into it, and I don't think I ever will be. And that was one reason, like, I almost thought about becoming like an art major in college, but I was kind of turned off by this whole emphasis on abstract art and painting abstractly, and just like no more realism. Like, you could do some realism, but it just seems like they were always promoting the abstract, and I never was really that interested in it.
well, the modernist movement isn't just an art. A lot of people, you know, believe that it's because the camera took over. So it used to be that an artist who painted portraits was actually necessary. You couldn't get a picture of someone any other way. And so, of course, he had to work really hard to make it realistic because people wanted to see what it really looked like, what the person looked like. And then the moment they invented photography, art was liberated from the need to be accurate. And suddenly it was something else. And so that's why we went through the whole pointillism business and everything else. And then it all went to pot. And suddenly it was just colors on a canvas. It's not,
Yeah,
I don't think that's really what it was, though. That's not my belief.
I think it's something else. I really do. What do you think?
Well, I'm interested in hearing what you think. Let me know what you think it is.
Well, I looked up something today and it was an interesting article about abstract art and money laundering.
Well, yeah, that is definitely going on. It is. You're right. That is happening.
Yeah, I thought that was like an interesting angle. It kind of makes sense too. I mean, I I'm not in that world, but I could see that happening. And I know Mexico, like, oh, I'm not for passing more laws because they're probably just passing the law so they can get some sort of kickback. But apparently, they passed a law saying that there could be no private people like buying a painting without saying the purposes. And I'm not for that, but the money laundering angle is kind of interesting, you know?
Well, I think the less people get into other people's finances, the better. Uh, this whole business of any transaction of $600 has to be reported is ridiculous.
That's crazy. Oh wow.
You didn't
Wow.
hear about that?
I it probably happened, but I wasn't paying attention.
No,
When
not
did
so now if you get paid by uh, you're a contractor, say, and you work for somebody, a company, and they're already reporting your income. They have to.
Yeah.
But now PayPal is also going to report that same income.
Why do they need to? That's weird.
Because if it's more than $600, they have to report it.
Wow. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, I wouldn't go in there and say, oh, money laundering is terrible. I think all money should be the business of the people involved in it. And
Well, yeah.
yeah, but it's quite possible that because of all these rules of reporting, that's why it's being used for money laundering. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see exactly what you're saying. Well, this is another reason people donate to like the goodwill. And donating is not like everybody's like, oh, donating is such a good thing, but it's really not exactly what people think it is because sometimes people have like stuff they've used it. I don't know. That's fine if you use it. Yours is your stuff, but they're specifically donating it so they can get a receipt, and that's fine. I totally understand that, but the goodwill is also kind of a scam too, because just in my opinion, but whatever.
Well, all charitable organizations, to one extent or another, are right now because this whole nonprofit issue, we shouldn't have that.
I mean, we shouldn't have any of that. Maybe
Yeah,
people
and we shouldn't have taxation. Look, all of this evil stuff comes from taxation.
I wish
So
I didn't have to pay taxes. That would be nice. Our tax rate went up again.
yeah, it's amazing how far they can raise everything, and it's still the economy still doesn't crash. But anyway, going back to the theory of art, the same thing that happened with painting also happened with poetry and music. And you
Hmm.
can't say it's because of the camera, right?
No, you can't. I mean, what do you have a theory like with music and poetry? Like why? Like what are your thoughts? I have some thoughts on it, but I'm not sure those are popular thoughts.
Well, I just think that the liberal intellectuals decided that if it was something that ordinary people could understand, they wanted to take that away from them, because it used to be that beautiful music was something you didn't have to be a genius to enjoy it. You might have to be a genius to write it. Um, Not everybody could write Mozart, but everybody could understand how a Mozart melody works, right? You know,
Exactly. No, and they could appreciate the beauty of it. And maybe my unpopular opinion is I actually think if you are very talented, you would want a large variety of people to enjoy your work, even if they don't know how to create it themselves. Like,
right. So now it was turned on its head, and now people are told that if they don't understand a piece of music or a piece of art or a piece of literature, poetry, that they're stupid and the problem is with them. When actually the problem is with the artist or the composer or uh, the poet.
yeah, see, that's why I wasn't a big fan of the book, Beloved, because it had, okay, our professor kept telling us, well, there's some deep meaning and you have to have a master's degree in English with like some sort of critical theory to understand this novel, and that the scars on her back from when she was beaten mean something deeper. And I'm like, that is nonsense. That's just utter not, and I don't agree with that. Like, no, because I think there's other stories that are written accounts of people who can tell an actual account that everybody could understand that would make more sense. I don't need to read something that I don't understand. I don't, that's just my opinion. That's probably unpopular though.
Yeah, I'm not saying that some things might not be deep and might not require a great deal of thought, but the beauty of music, the beauty of art, the beauty of poetry is its simplicity and the way it strikes you, and you do not have to be a genius to understand it. Everybody can understand it.
I mean, I still believe that. And I don't need to be in the circles that say, oh, like honestly, like when it always came to art, I just liked what I thought was beautiful and what touched me. And I wasn't looking for it to be like critically acclaimed by a niche group of people at one particular university that said that you have to like it, only this particular kind of art, and only paint, I don't know, or this type of music, which not, it's not really music in my opinion, but
Yeah. Well, I agree.
I mean, people can like whatever they like, but I
Of
think there's
course.
something,
Of
yeah,
course.
and we're not taking that away from them, but I think there's something wrong when we have a group of people that say only this way of creating is considered like to be aspirational. That's what I kind of don't like.
Yeah. So, here I am, and I recognize that I have flaws to this art, but I just enjoy, trying to improve and trying to paint something that will make me feel good, at least.
At the end of the day, I feel like that's what art is about, like expressing yourself and maybe improving and like deriving joy from it. And then some people, and this is the irony, there are some people in those niches that will say like the higher echelons of art, like people will be like fawning over what they painted or something they composed, and they'll be like, oh, I just said that just to see what people would think. And
Yeah.
I've heard, I'm not gonna like name names, but there have been famous people that said that.
Yeah, well, there are people who just they want to see how far they can get away with things and what kind of wool they can pull over people's eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Anyway, I just love classic like painting, drawing. I mean, I might like some rock music, but I still like something that's more classically inclined. I don't get the whole like really modern stuff where it just doesn't really appeal to me.
Yeah. Well,
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, like your painting style or like your thoughts on painting?
No, I just thought maybe some people would like to paint along with the painting and would like to share their observations about it. And, you know, so for instance, I'm using this kind of greenish color there. Do you think it goes well with the rest of the colors?
Yeah, it actually kind of like it's the opposite of like I kind of see a red tone in her top. Is that red? It looks
Uh,
reddish.
it's reddish. It's I used a pink color. Again, I didn't have a lot of strong colors. The watercolors that I have tend to be more on the pastelish side of things. So it's more of a pink than a red. I probably would have used a red if I had one that was really strong, but that's as close as I could get to it with what I had.
On my monitor, it just looks. I mean, when I get really, really close, I do see it's more pink. But for some reason, my monitor is just like, I think it kind of has like limited colors sometimes when we're in the StreamYard. So
No,
it
it's
looks.
okay because my painting also has limited colors. I made it as vibrant as I could because I like things to be vibrant, but it actually is a little bit off
No,
color
I
wise.
like it though. I mean, what I was saying is the green and red, or red and like this pink and green, they kind of go together. Like the top, it just looks like it kind of blends.
Yeah. So part of it is from what is actually there in the reference photo, but part of it is just me trying to make do with what I've got to be as close to it as I can.
I used to torture myself like to copy reference photographs. I'm like, I have to be exactly right. Like it has to be exactly like so perfect. And then I started looking at some people that even do super realism, like they are like so talented, really. And then I started noticing, I'm like, well, but they didn't exactly copy what was in the photo. They'll move things to an angle that they like, and so after a while, I'm like, I'm not going to stress myself out as much anymore.
Yeah, I think the more relaxed you become with what you can do, the more you actually take liberties and decide, okay, that's not like that there, but it would be better if it were, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy, and I don't know, like I would always like, but when I draw, I feel like painting's a little bit more freeing though, like without having to have this like precise outline like I used to think I had. And then I thought about it too. I'm like, I used to paint over it. Like, why did I do that to myself? It kind of
Right,
was it
exactly.
was kind of
Exactly.
stressful. I kind of like how you do it because it's less stressful and it's more expressive and fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's no point exactly. I knew that in advance that I could not like color in a, a drawing, even if it was a drawing that I drew, because I've never been good at coloring things in and not making a mess. So that's why I do it this way.
I mean, if it's colored pencils, I can do that. But this is the sad thing about colored pencils. Like, you could spend a lot of time getting it exactly how you want, even, and they fade over time, whereas the paintings don't. So, even though I love the way colored pencil looks, I'm very discouraged that after a few years, I'm like, it starts to fade.
Well, I'm wondering if you varnish it, will it still fade?
I need to buy varnish, and I actually am thinking about starting to do that for the paintings because I think it would keep things from getting into it after it's kind of drying. So I need to go to Walmart and buy that varnish. I've been meaning to do that.
Yeah, I haven't been varnishing my paintings in the sketchbook um, because they're more protective. But if there's a painting that you keep outside, on the wall, then it's always a good idea to varnish it.
I think I might even go back and maybe I'll varnish some. I won't do Mod Podge though because it's Mod Podge is such a little bit of a fibber. It says on the back you can varnish paintings with it, but it'll make them run. And I learned that the hard way. I'm like, no, unless you want to rework it and have it run. don't trust that. The spray thing is better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the spray, I let the painting lie down on the table for overnight before
Mhm.
I, because it can run, of course.
Well, it's better than Mod Podge because it claimed that. So I tried, and it had been drying for a week, and it started to run a little bit into the brush, and like it was almost like I was painting with the paint in the Mod Podge, and I'm like, it might look like a cool effect, but that wasn't exactly what I was intending to do.
Right. Okay. Well, I signed that, so now we don't need to look at it anymore.
Okay. Well, it turned out really nice. I really like how I'm so glad you captured that since I had forgot to go live earlier. So that was good that you captured that.
Yeah, it turned out a good idea that I did that. So, yeah, why don't you hold up your painting and I'll hold up mine.
Yay. Here we are.
That's what we did today. And
Yeah, that was fun. I think we had a really good time. This was such a fun afternoon. And I really am excited that we're going to do more painting and we're going to paint on your channel next week.
yes,
Yeah.
so it's a date. We should do it around 1 o'clock my time next Sunday.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks so much for talking to me, Julia, about this.
Have a good night.
Good night.